Welcome to Medical Girl Mystical World. Today we are going to be talking about the healing power of animals. And my guest today is Sigrira. She is an animal intuitive and Reiki master, and she communicates with animals who are alive and also in spirit. She is a interspecies mother and animal advocate who believes that we can transcend the species hierarchy by seeing animals as equals through love. Welcome, Sigrira. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So I want to start off with just getting a little bit of your background. And those of you who have been followers of Jamie Butler's work may have seen Sigrira on the first season of the Lighter Side show, but I'd like to reintroduce her and have you give us a bit of a background of about you, but also how you got into this work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As long as I can remember, I have just loved animals, and I have never been able to see a difference between animals and humans in terms of a hierarchy. And about 10 years ago, I actually started learning how to communicate with spirit from Jamie Butler. And a couple years later, I had a session with her where I got a message that I could actually communicate with animals. And even though I had done this as a child, I didn't realize that I didn't really realize I could still do it, or that it was real. So I began sort of relearning how to do that, and it was really like my greatest, wish come true. When I was little, my favorite superhero was Aquaman, because he could talk to the animal, to the sea creatures.
So who was the first animal that you communicated with?
It was actually my first two cat sons, Juno and Jarvis. And around the time when I was we were getting ready to move, and I asked them if they were okay with us moving to a house. And it was really interesting because the way they described it is they said it was the house in the mountain. And I would have never referred to it as such, but our house actually is, as you've been there, it actually is in a hill, and the bottom, downstairs part is sort of inside, under the earth.
Right.
So that was really a really great confirmation for me that they knew what I was talking about, and that I was hearing them because they were using words I don't normally use.
Right, and how they describe things without having that human filter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. So today I really want to focus on, my show is geared towards health, and I've always been such a big animal lover, and I know that they have these healing powers, and they comfort us, and I think that they are really perceptive on how we are feeling. So I want to talk about the healing powers of animals and how beautiful it is. And so can you kind of give me, either with like personal experience or clients that you have worked with maintaining confidentiality, but like some really good, how should I put, confirmations of the work that the animals do. So tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It would actually be hard for me to think of an instance where an animal was not helping to heal their person.
Yeah.
It really is such an integral part of what they do for us, and they choose to come here to incarnate, to be with us. But to starting a little bit more generally, animals can see our energy. And I have had animals tell me that when their human parents walk in the door, they can actually tell, sometimes they'll describe it as the difference between the energy being smooth or being like spiky. They have really interesting ways where they visually can see it that most of us can't see it that way. So I've had animals that when their parents walk in from having been outside and exposed to all kinds of energy, they will, immediately start, demand that they get to be on the lap so they can start smoothing it out, or they Sometimes dogs want to make their parents go for a walk right away, not only for themselves, but also because their parent needs that fresh air, that movement to sort of release their energy a little bit.
And I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of times I'll come in, you know, whether it's going to the grocery store or being out of the home all day, and I come in and my kitty's like right in my face, and I'm like, what are you doing in my face? So that kind of tells me that, yeah, they know that I've been busy, and I think it is, they're communicating with us like, hey, take a break, relax, you're here, you know, let that go. So I'm really glad that you said that, because now it makes sense, because I mean, for me, you know, honestly, I mean, it can be annoying to me, and I think that is their way of telling me to say, hey, you need to, you know, let that go, get home, digress, kind of. Do they do that? Are they clearing your energy for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sometimes as humans, we have to get things done. We have work to do. We want to be on our computers, but they will actually, I can feel them. They're almost like little Reiki masters or little energy healers themselves.
Yeah.
But they operate on levels that I can't even fully comprehend.
Yeah.
Like, it's beyond me, but I can feel that it's happening. And I also have, I have quite a few clients who do energy work themselves. And I've talked to a lot of animals that sort of help their parents clear energy that they, you know, from the work that they do. So there's one dog in particular that I'm thinking of that her mom does a lot of work from home via Skype. And if there is anything going on that could be perceived as maybe more like a dense or lower vibration coming through, she won't stop barking even if she's in the middle of a session.
Really?
So they will sometimes actively get their attention that way to sort of try to, you know, change the circumstance, or they will, you know, sort of afterwards, you know, lay with them and sort of try to take care of it that way.
So kind of, we need to pay a little bit more attention of what our animals are telling us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I do that, or they're driving me crazy or running around. I think with myself, and I think with the viewers too, is that using our animals as our guides. Because I believe that animals are so pure, and they have no judgments whatsoever, and the unconditional love.
Yeah, I agree. Their vibration is just so, or, you know, frequency, whatever you want to call it, is so much higher than what humans usually operate at. So they really are. They are capable of completely unconditional love, and I think one of the misperceptions sometimes is that when they're being demanding, like demanding to go outside or to be, you know, to have affection, sometimes we think that they're sort of only doing it for themselves, but they really are looking out for you and, you know, trying their best and, you know, in the best way that they can to help.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot with cats, people think that, you know, you'll see these memes or whatever, and they're like, you'll see the cat and have like a little look, and they're like, okay, slave, you know, do this. But, you know, we do like, okay, or you'll see the kitty at the PetSmart or whatever, and they'll have a thing that says, I'm picking out my newest slave, or and it's really, we really got to look at how they're helping us too, instead of, you know, cats being divas or, you know, whatever, putting that stigma on them when they're,
oh my gosh,
you know. I'm glad that you said that, because you always bring up points that makes me look at things in different perspectives. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, they do. I mean, they're just amazing.
They are. They're incredible. Beings. I mean, I feel so lucky to be able to be a mother. And I consider myself a mother, an interspecies mother to my cat children. I treasure every single moment that I have with them. And I wake up and they're there, and I'm just, you know, I don't even think I can describe how grateful I am to have them in my life. And there was, speaking of them making us feel better or healing us, I actually had a shoulder injury last year, as you know, and there was one moment that I remember distinctly that I was sitting on my couch, and I suddenly had this pain that brought tears to my eyes, like it was that intense. And almost simultaneously, the very moment that I felt that pain, they appeared. I don't even know where they were in the house. They just suddenly were there, and they were both on my lap, and they were purring and healing. And they rarely both sit on my lap at the same time. And it's just amazing how tuned in they are. It doesn't matter if they're in the same room with you. They just feel your emotions right away.
Right, absolutely. And I have a similar story too. So when I had breast cancer, I had a double mastectomy. And Josephine, one of my kitties, she's not very much of a lap kitty. And when I got home from the hospital and I was all bandaged up and stuff, she sat on my chest for days. And it wasn't hurtful or anything, but it's like she knew what I had been through. And I mean, the love. And it was just so strange because I was like, what is she? I mean, she knew.
She did know.
And
absolutely.
So one thing you and I have talked before, but I think that it would be a good conversation for our viewers, is that I kind of said to you, well, it's animal instinct, and you said really it's something more than that. So kind of describe what you and I were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so much more than instinct.
Okay.
I believe that animals, just like I said before, they operate on a higher energetic level, and they are very aware of what is going on. They actually understand everything that we say to them. Animals, just like people, have a choice of incarnating with a certain level of like awake, being, how awake they are in the sense. So that might be why you have some animals that feel more like they're little Zen masters, and then some that feel more like they just want to really dig in the dirt and do this. But whatever it is that their personality is, they still, on an energetic level, are very aware of what's going on, and they consciously choose to come in to help us, and not only to heal us, but then sometimes they help us by mirroring certain situations. I've seen a lot lately of animals where they mirror their person's anxiety to them, and this could take the form of, sometimes they can, it could be like over grooming, or it could be behaviors where they're chewing on their paws, or any kind of repetitive kind of behaviors like that. Something often can be anxiety. And sometimes what I'm finding is that people will go to great lengths to help their animals, even when they won't help themselves. So I think sometimes animals in a way know this, and they will mirror this behavior, and the person will go do all this research on how to help their dog or their cat or their horse
when they need to be looking at themselves.
But in a roundabout way, this actually ends up helping the person, because when they learn some of the solutions for the animal, they actually realize that some of the solutions will work for them too. So they might learn, their animals need access to fresh air or to nature. Sometimes indoor kitties don't get enough outdoor time, so they might need a playpen or a catio, or the dog needs to go outside more. So, and then the person, when they're taking their animal out, they're benefiting from it too.
Correct.
Or they might find out about something, that's other things that are calming, that are needed in the home. They might find out about maybe some stagnant energy in the home. And you do some house clearing, so how that can accumulate. And when we let that accumulate, it affects our animals, because they're in the home all the time. Like, we leave and come back. So it's really important to keep it clear for them, just as much as for us. And again, people will do it for their animals, even if they won't for themselves.
Yeah. Now, with that, because you're an animal intuitive, and you also do Reiki energy healing exclusively for animals.
Yes.
So, do you find that when people call and say what is going on with them, or with their animal, there's a lot of direct relation between what's going on with the human. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like they're similar. Sometimes there's similar things going on between them.
But do you find that the human is not cognizant of what is going on with them? They think it's all focused on the animal and what's going on with the animal, and are they really caught off guard when they're like...
It tends to start off that way, and I don't always necessarily inquire into what's going on with the human. I really focus on the animal when I'm doing my sessions. But what I find is that I really need to trust what the animals are bringing across, because they know the perfect way to approach a topic with their parent or with their human caretaker. If I were to do it, I might not use the right words, or it might be something that's maybe too sensitive, because sometimes they bring up, personal things, and that's why my readings are confidential.
Right.
But the animals always use the right words or give the right examples or analogies. And sometimes it will be something that I have no idea what they're talking about. They're talking about, giving me almost like a fairy tale or story to share with their parent, and then it ends up being something that totally resonates, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a story I knew when I was a child, and this comforted me. And so it just sort of has that effect on the parent, but I wouldn't be able to know what that would be, what the perfect thing would be to help them.
But your work, when you're working with the animals, it's indirectly affecting
exactly
the parent, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful too, and it's not something that I understood when I first started,
right.
And I've realized it as I've been doing it, and it's really great to hear. And I also, even just lately, I'm finding out some of what you mentioned about people sort of, the way the animals explain things, sometimes people sort of realize that they have similarities. Like I had a session with a dog recently that's very shy and introverted, and she needed certain things. Like she gets very tense, like she has muscle tension, and she needs to like run to help her with that, and massage and sound. She asked for sound healing, which is kind of neat. They don't always ask for sound healing.
Wow.
And I didn't really know the mom before, but I was telling her these things, and I was kind of like, oh, she might think this is weird, but she was actually like, actually, I know just a thing. I have sound healing CDs, and I'm exactly, and it kind of clicked with her that she needed those exact same things for her peace of mind and well-being.
So when you have that, what I would love to hear about the follow-up and how the things that are communicated through the animal, and when you give those suggestions on what, tell me about a couple of follow-ups where you've seen like with improvements with the animal, but also the animal parent.
Well, they're not my follow-ups. I mean, they're not my suggestions. They're coming straight from the animal.
Okay,
just to clarify.
Yeah, okay, clarify.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because it's all them. I'm really just translating. Like,
okay, gotcha.
But oh my gosh, let me try to think of it. That's a good question. So I guess one instance recently was one animal companion. There was a dog who was having certain physical reactions to something in the home. And then when her mom looked into it, she found out about certain like molds and things that were going on.
Oh, wow.
And then by, sort of to treat the dog, she also ended up treating, her family, because it was everyone that was having reactions to that. So she sort of, alerted them to it, and, and ended up improving the situation in the home.
Right. So it's kind of like the ripple effect. It kind of like you.
And again, it's sort of like, you try to help your animal, and then it ends up helping
yeah,
you.
it goes out. That's really cool. One thing I wanted to talk to you about was it's become more popular where we're having animals as a support, and people that have certain disabilities where they have service dogs that help them, and that's been going on for a while. But also too, what's really new is emotional support animals. What are your thoughts about emotional support animals and how they benefit people?
I believe that all animals are emotional support animals, and when they're designated as such by a certificate or legality, it's sort of just stating it to the rest of the world to allow them entry to places that are traditionally only for humans. So I think it's wonderful to acknowledge that animals are there for our support, and I would like to see it not be limited only to people who have maybe anxiety conditions or situations that, where they have to go to a psychiatrist to receive a note that allows them to take their animals somewhere.
Right. It should just be common where people have their animals, where they don't have to have, someone say that is needed.
Exactly.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to ask was, and this is just with me, playing the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Do you think that people can be too dependent on animals where they're not doing their self-work or their self-healing? What are your thoughts about that, where they having the codependency of animals?
I hear what you're saying. And I think I think to some extent we do depend. I mean, almost everyone depends on their companion animals, but I hear what you're saying, and I do think that I like the idea of us helping them out and not putting it all on them.
Yes, excellent point.
Because it's not, you know what I mean? Even though they have chosen to come in and do this for us, sometimes by taking care of ourselves, we can help take care of them, because that way they're not taking on all of our negative stuff, and we don't want them to have to deal with that. And I know that sometimes there's, you know, illnesses that we have no control over,
Right.
but we certainly have control over, you know, our, you know, doing our best to keep ourselves calm and doing things that make us happy. And it's one of those situations where self-care in a way, you know, directly impacts the health of our companions.
Right. And I was reading an article, and it made a very good point of we as humans, we want to receive love, and we get that love for animals, but also too, we as humans, we want to give love as well, to have that cycle of love going on, instead of just having the animal comfort us. Giving our love is, you know, giving back that energy. It's a reciprocal kind of effect.
Yes, we absolutely want to give love to them, and I think it's also one of the ways that we can best give love to them is to really see them, to see them as individual beings who are completely our equals. And I think sometimes because they're so cute and so adorable, you know, sometimes it's hard to see that they, you know, they have their own things going on. So I think, you know, just in terms of that, I think understanding and really acknowledging them and spending time with them, you know, uninterrupted time where we're not on our cell phones, those kinds of things are really important in terms of sharing our love with them.
Right. And you bring up a very good point, because we are distracted, and there's been research that has been done when we just look in our animals' eyes, it drops our pulse rate. When we pet our animals, it can decrease our blood pressure.
Yes.
And it is, I mean, if we take that moment to connect, the health benefits for us, but also them as well, are just amazing.
And purring.
Yeah, they've done studies on purring and how that releases oxytocin in the body, which makes us happy. It is also a pain relief for us. So really, I just feel like everybody needs to go get an animal to help them. I mean, how wonderful would that be? But
we also want to make sure that we're not just getting them to help us, but we also, you know, we're including them in our family, and they're full family members, and we want to make sure that we can dedicate, you know, time to them, and, you know, because some of the situations, they are susceptible to some of the same things that humans are susceptible to. So if they're in a home where, you know, no one's there, they can get bored and become depressed. So they can still, you know, fall prey to some of those types of things that we do. So it's still really important, you know, to take care of them as well. But, you know, just like you said, taking care of ourselves goes a long way towards helping them.
One of the things that I've experienced with animals is when they cross over, people have so much grief because of that purity of love, and there's no judgment.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that they're in spirit with us, and if we wanted to, we can tune into them. But also, too, I think that they come back. Don't they come back several times in our lifetimes? Or
it really is all individual. Some animals will come back to the same person a couple of times. Some animals lately have been telling me that they prefer to almost stay in spirit and act almost like a spirit guide or like a protector of their person.
Yeah.
So it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
They don't all choose the same thing.
Right.
But they are always available to us, and almost every single one is, you know, tells me that if the person thinks of them, they're there.
Yeah.
So because they're in a place where there's no linear time or space in the same way that we experience it. So they're able to be in more than one place at once, and they can be there for us.
And that's very comforting to know as well.
And the loss of an animal is really just as traumatic, if not more traumatic, sometimes than losing a human. Because if you think about it, you don't wake up, you know, with all of your human relatives and family, you know, the same way that you do with your animal. They
Right.
go everywhere with you in
Yeah.
the house. They're with us so much of our time, and it's a very intimate, you know, just personal, you know, relationship.
Yeah, but that's good to know that they're
Mhm.
always around us,
They
and
are.
even though if they're not here in physical form, they're with us in spirit and helping us in spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
They're
thanks for
amazing.
coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! So, if you would like to get in contact with Sigrira, please go to www.sigrira.com. And you do remote sessions?
I do. I do almost all of my sessions remotely.
Okay, but she works internationally, so please check out her website. And if you would like to check out my website, look at www.centeredself.com or check out my Facebook pages. And thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you.